The morning rush at Seattle's Corner Cup coffee shop was just ending when Tom noticed her. She stood out among the usual crowd of hurried office workers and students, though at first, he couldn't quite say why. Her business suit was perfectly normal, and her long dark hair was neatly tied back, but something about her made his eyes keep returning to her as she studied the menu board with intense concentration. When she reached the counter, Tom realized what was different. Her skin had a subtle shimmer to it, like morning dew on grass, and her eyes were an impossible shade of blue that seemed to shift like waves in the ocean. Still, he kept his professional smile in place. Working as a barista in Seattle, he'd seen all types of people, and he prided himself on treating everyone equally. "Welcome to Corner Cup. What can I get for you today?" he asked, noting how she tilted her head slightly at his greeting, as if recording it for future study. "I wish to experience this drink that humans call a caramel macchiato," she said. Her voice had an unusual musical quality, and her grammar was oddly formal, but Tom had served plenty of international students before. "Hot or iced?" he asked, reaching for a cup. She blinked those fascinating eyes. "There are temperature variations. How intriguing. What would you recommend for a first-time experience?" Tom couldn't help but smile at her enthusiasm. "Well, since it's a warm day, I'd suggest trying it iced. The cold brings out the sweetness of the caramel." "Then I shall trust your expertise in this matter," she declared solemnly, as if he'd just given her advice about world peace rather than coffee. As Tom prepared her drink, he noticed she was watching his every move with remarkable focus. Most customers would be on their phones by now, but she studied the espresso machine like it was advanced technology. "So, is this your first time in a coffee shop?" he asked, carefully layering the espresso over the iced milk. "Indeed. I am new to this area. There are many customs I wish to understand better." She paused, then added, "My name is Blue." Tom drizzled caramel over the top of her drink. "Blue. That's an interesting name. I'm Tom." He slid her drink across the counter. "Here you go. One iced caramel macchiato. Let me know what you think." Blue picked up the drink and examined it from all angles before taking a careful sip. Her eyes widened, and a smile spread across her face, the first real expression of emotion he'd seen from her. "This is remarkable. The combination of sweetness, bitterness, and temperature creates a most fascinating sensory experience." Her genuine wonder made Tom laugh. "If you think that's good, you should try some of our other drinks. Or better yet, let me show you some of the best coffee spots in Seattle. I get off work at 5, and there's this great place down by Pike Place Market." The words were out of his mouth before he realized he'd just invited a complete stranger to hang out. But there was something about her that made him want to see more of those delighted reactions to everyday things. Blue set her drink down with careful precision. "You would serve as my guide to human beverage customs." Her tone made it sound like he'd offered her the keys to a kingdom. "Sure, why not? Seattle's the coffee capital of America. Everyone should get the full tour at least once." "I accept your proposal," Blue said with a formal nod. "I shall return at 5 o'clock precisely." As she walked away, sipping her drink with obvious pleasure, Tom noticed that the shimmer of her skin left a faint trail of what looked like stardust in the morning sunlight. He shook his head, blaming it on too many early morning shifts, and turned to serve his next customer. He had no way of knowing that his casual invitation had just set in motion events that would change not only his life, but the course of human history. At exactly 5:00 p.m., Tom walked out of Corner Cup, having changed from his coffee-stained work uniform into jeans and a clean t-shirt. Blue was already waiting, standing perfectly still in the exact spot where she'd been when he'd served her that morning. Several passers-by were giving her curious looks, but she didn't seem to notice. "You're right on time," Tom said with a smile. "Ready to explore?" Blue pulled out a small silver device that looked like a cross between a phone and a crystal. "I am prepared to document all cultural exchanges," she said, tapping the device. It hummed softly and glowed with a faint blue light. "Oh, you're making a video?" Tom asked, suddenly feeling a bit self-conscious. "I am recording all data for proper analysis and protocol adherence," Blue replied. She turned to him and made a gesture that looked like a cross between a curtsy and a bow. "Please proceed with the cultural guidance, Chosen One." Tom blinked. "Chosen One. You can just call me Tom. As the initiator of this formal exchange, you have earned the title," Blue said seriously. "It is a great honor." Tom rubbed the back of his neck, feeling confused but deciding to go with it. "Right. Well, let's start with Pike Place Market. It's just a few blocks away." As they walked, Blue recorded everything. The street signs, the passing cars, even the pigeons pecking at crumbs on the sidewalk. She seemed especially fascinated by a hot dog vendor, spending 5 minutes asking detailed questions about the concept of street food. "So humans regularly purchase and consume food items from mobile vendors without knowing their credentials or food preparation methods?" she asked, her crystal device humming as she spoke. "Well, when you put it that way, it does sound a bit weird," Tom admitted. "But that's part of the experience. Want to try one?" Blue's eyes widened. "You would share a food ritual with me?" "Sure, it's just a hot dog." Tom laughed, already reaching for his wallet. "I accept this profound gesture," Blue said solemnly, bowing again. The hot dog vendor gave them an odd look as he prepared their food. When they reached Pike Place Market, Blue's behavior got even more interesting. She called every shop owner esteemed merchant and treated the fish-throwing ritual at Pike Place Fish Market like a sacred ceremony. Her device recorded everything, and she took detailed notes on what Tom assumed was coffee shop etiquette. "So the barista is like a beverage alchemist?" she asked as they sat at a small cafe. "They hold great power over the preparation of these sacred drinks." Tom nearly choked on his latte. "Sacred? No, we just make coffee. It's a normal job." "Yet you chose to share your knowledge with me," Blue insisted. "Such an offer from one of your status." "My status?" Tom was getting more confused by the minute. "I'm just a regular barista." Blue's eyes seemed to glow slightly brighter. "Your humility honors you, Chosen One. But your offer of guidance through your domain cannot be taken lightly." Before Tom could argue that Seattle wasn't exactly his domain, Blue reached into her suit jacket and pulled out a crystal that looked similar to her recording device, but this one was deeper blue and pulsed with its own inner light. "Please accept this token," she said, holding it out with both hands. "It marks the beginning of our formal arrangement." Tom hesitantly took the crystal. The moment his fingers touched it, it glowed brighter and felt warm against his skin. Thanks. But really, this is just a casual hangout. You don't need to." "The first phase is complete," Blue announced, standing suddenly. She made another formal bow. "I shall now report to my superiors. Tomorrow, the official delegation will arrive to begin the next phase of our union." Before Tom could ask what she meant by official delegation or union, Blue turned and walked away, leaving him sitting there holding the glowing crystal and feeling like he'd somehow missed something very, very important. The hot dog vendor across the street, who'd been watching the whole scene, caught Tom's eye and shrugged as if to say, "Tourists, right?" If only it were that simple. Tom woke up to the sound of hovering. At first, he thought it was a helicopter, but the quiet hum was different, smoother, almost musical. He stumbled to his apartment window, coffee mug in hand, and promptly dropped it when he saw what was outside. 3 sleek silver ships, each the size of a bus, floated in the air around his apartment building. They looked like liquid metal caught in mid-flow, with no visible engines or windows. The morning sun reflected off their surfaces in rainbow patterns that shouldn't have been possible. "This has to be a dream," Tom muttered, pinching himself. "Too much caffeine yesterday." His doorbell rang. When he opened the door, he found himself facing 2 men in black suits who looked like they'd stepped out of a spy movie, and behind them stood a very apologetic-looking government official in a navy blue uniform. "Mr. Tom Walker," the official asked, checking a tablet. "I'm Agent Jones from the Department of Extraterrestrial Relations. May we come in? We have a situation to discuss." Tom looked back at the floating ships outside his window, then at the agents. "This is about Blue, isn't it? So you're aware of Princess Azure of the Stellar Concordat," Agent Jones said as they entered his small apartment. He seemed relieved. Tom sat down hard on his couch. "Princess." "Yes, though in their language her title would be closer to next primary leader of the 7 star systems." Agent Jones consulted his tablet again. "She's been on Earth as part of a cultural research mission. Apparently, she chose to interact with you specifically." "She just wanted coffee," Tom said weakly. One of the men in black coughed. "According to their customs, your actions yesterday constituted a formal marriage proposal." Tom jumped up. "My what?" "When a person of high status in their culture offers to guide another through their domain of expertise, it's considered a proposal of lifelong partnership," Agent Jones explained. "The fact that you gave her food and drink during this guidance ritual further cemented the proposal's legitimacy." "But I just offered to show her some coffee shops." "Which you, as a trained beverage artisan, oversee," Agent Jones said. "From their perspective, you were demonstrating your mastery of your craft and offering to share that life with her." Tom's head was spinning. "And that crystal she gave me? The royal bonding token. It's their equivalent of an engagement ring, but more significant." Agent Jones adjusted his tie nervously. "The moment you accepted it, you technically became betrothed to one of the most powerful beings in this sector of the galaxy." As if on cue, there was a flash of light outside. A 4th ship, larger and more ornate than the others, appeared in the air. This one was deep blue with swirling patterns that seemed to move across its surface. "That would be the royal delegation," Agent Jones said. "They're here to begin the formal marriage preparations. The Concordat sees this as a perfect opportunity for an alliance with Earth." An alliance? Tom felt like he needed to sit down again, so he did. Yes, they'd been watching Earth for years, trying to decide if we were ready for contact. "Your proposal has fast-tracked the whole process." Agent Jones managed a small smile. "Congratulations. You might have accidentally achieved first contact and intergalactic peace through coffee." Before Tom could respond, his phone buzzed. It was a text from his boss at Corner Cup. "Why are there spaceships outside the coffee shop? And why is the president calling me about your shift yesterday?" Tom looked at the crystal Blue had given him, which was now pulsing with a gentle light in sync with the humming of the ships outside. He thought about Blue's formal behavior, her intense interest in everything he'd said, and how she'd called him Chosen One. She knew exactly what she was doing, didn't she? He asked nobody in particular. Agent Jones nodded. "We believe Princess Azure may have orchestrated this entire situation. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" Outside, the blue ship settled into a hover directly level with Tom's apartment window, and a beam of light began to form, reaching toward his balcony. Tom straightened his coffee-themed pajamas and ran a hand through his messy hair. Somehow, he had a feeling this was going to be an interesting conversation. The beam of light from the blue ship materialized into what looked like a crystal elevator. Tom watched, mouth open, as the door slid aside with a musical chime. Blue stepped out, though she looked very different from the business-suited figure of yesterday. Now she wore flowing robes that seemed to be made of living starlight, shifting colors with every movement. A delicate crown of what appeared to be pure energy floated above her head, and her skin's subtle shimmer had become more pronounced, making her look like she was made of stardust. "Greetings, my chosen one," she said, smiling at Tom in his coffee-stained pajamas. "I trust the Earth authorities have explained the situation." Agent Jones and the men in black immediately dropped into deep bows. Tom just stood there, still holding his empty coffee mug, trying to process everything. "You're really a princess?" he managed to ask. The term is simplified for human understanding. But yes, Blue, or Princess Azure, glided into his apartment. She looked around with genuine interest. Your living space is charmingly compact. Tom looked at his small apartment with its mismatched furniture and coffee-themed decorations. It's kind of a mess, actually. I wasn't expecting, royal visitors. Had I announced myself properly, you would not have acted naturally, Blue explained. She touched one of the coffee posters on his wall. Your genuine interest in sharing your knowledge of beverages is what drew me to you. About that, Tom said, finally finding his voice. You knew what it meant when I offered to show you around. You planned this. Blue's eyes sparkled. I have spent 3 Earth years studying human culture, looking for the right person. Someone kind, genuine, and passionate about their chosen field. She gestured to his apartment. Someone who surrounds themselves with symbols of their craft, who treats strangers with respect, who offers guidance without expecting anything in return. But why? Tom asked. Surely there are more important people you could have chosen for an alliance. Politicians seek power. Business people seek profit. Blue's expression turned serious. I sought someone who would treat both a princess and a confused stranger in a coffee shop the same way. You did not know who I was, yet you showed me kindness and enthusiasm. Before Tom could respond, more figures emerged from the light beam. They wore similar flowing robes, though less elaborate than Blue's, and carried what looked like floating tablets made of crystal. The Royal Advisory Council, Agent Jones whispered to Tom. They're here to discuss the terms of the alliance. One of the advisors stepped forward and bowed to Tom. Honored Chosen One, your union with Princess Azure would mark the beginning of formal relations between Earth and the Stellar Concordat. We offer technological and scientific knowledge in exchange for Earth's cultural richness. Cultural richness? Tom asked. Blue smiled. Your art, your music, your stories, but especially your ability to find joy in simple things. My people have grown too formal, too structured. We have mastered space travel but forgotten how to simply enjoy a cup of coffee with a stranger. The Council has prepared the initial treaty, another advisor said, floating one of the crystal tablets toward Agent Jones, who nearly dropped it in excitement. Tom looked at the tablet, which showed complex diagrams of advanced technology. Then he looked at Blue, who was still admiring his coffee posters with genuine interest. You really want to change your whole civilization because of coffee shops? He asked. Not just coffee shops, Blue said softly. Because of what they represent. Casual conversation, unexpected friendships, the ability to turn strangers into friends over a shared drink. My people have forgotten these simple pleasures. She turned to face him fully. I chose you, Tom, because you represent the best of what humans can be. Kind without reason, passionate without pretense, genuine without effort. Tom looked around his apartment, at the government agents trying not to touch anything alien, at the royal advisors floating tablets around, at the spaceships visible through his window, and at Blue, a literal princess who had decided to change the course of human history because she liked how he made coffee. So, he said, should we maybe discuss this over another caramel macchiato? For the first time, Blue laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a summer breeze. The advisors looked shocked at such an informal display, but Blue's eyes sparkled with delight. I would like that very much, Chosen One. The Corner Cup coffee shop had never seen anything like this before. Tom stood behind the counter, making drinks as usual, but his customers today were rather unusual. Blue sat at a table near the window, still in her starlight robes, while her advisors floated nearby, trying to understand why their princess insisted on meeting in such a simple place. Agent Jones and his team attempted to look casual while keeping other customers away. Here's your drink, princess, Tom said, placing another caramel macchiato in front of Blue. Though I still think we should talk about this whole marriage thing. You have concerns, Blue said, taking the sip. Her crown sparkled in the morning sunlight. Well, yeah. Yesterday I was just a barista, and now I'm supposed to be part of some huge intergalactic alliance. Tom wiped down the counter, a nervous habit. Plus, we barely know each other. Blue's eyes softened. Then let us know each other. Ask me anything. Tom thought for a moment. Okay, why did you really choose Earth? And why me? Blue set down her drink and stood up. With a wave of her hand, she created a shimmer in the air that made everyone else in the shop freeze in place. A time bubble, she explained. Now we can talk privately. She walked to the counter and, to Tom's surprise, came around to his side. May I? She asked, pointing to the espresso machine. Sure, Tom said, stepping aside. Blue began making a drink with surprising skill. I spent 3 years studying Earth. Not just your coffee shops, but everything. Your movies, books, music, the way humans interact. I visited every continent, learned your languages, watched how different cultures came together. You did all that just to find someone to marry? Tom asked. Blue smiled as she steamed milk perfectly. I did it to find hope. You see, my civilization is dying. Not physically, but spiritually. We have achieved so much technological advancement that we've forgotten how to truly live. She poured the milk with expert precision, creating a perfect heart in the foam. We don't have casual conversations anymore. Every interaction is formal. Every meeting has a protocol. Every relationship is arranged for political advantage. We've lost the ability to simply connect. And that's why you came to a coffee shop. I came to many coffee shops, Blue said, sliding the finished drink to Tom. But you were the first person who didn't just serve me. You shared your passion. You didn't try to impress me or gain anything. You simply wanted to show me something you loved. Tom picked up the drink she'd made. It was perfect. When did you learn to make coffee? I practiced for 2 years before meeting you. I wanted to understand what I was asking for. She looked at her advisors, still frozen in time. They think I'm being foolish, throwing away centuries of tradition for what they see as primitive customs. Are they right? Tom asked quietly. Blue turned to him, her eyes glowing softly. What do you think? You've seen both sides now. My power, my responsibilities, and what I'm trying to change. Do you think it's foolish to want genuine connections, to seek joy in simple things? Tom looked at the drink in his hands, then at Blue, who somehow managed to look both powerful and vulnerable at the same time. I think, he said slowly, that any civilization advanced enough to travel between stars should be advanced enough to appreciate a good cup of coffee and honest conversation. Blue's smile lit up the room, literally, as her happiness made her glow brighter. Then you understand why I chose you. You see value in both the simple and the profound. But marriage? Tom asked. That's a huge step. Perhaps, Blue agreed. But sometimes huge changes require bold steps. She waved her hand, and time resumed around them. You have until sunset to decide. If you accept, you'll help bridge 2 worlds. If you decline, we'll find another way to establish contact with Earth. She walked back to her table, leaving Tom behind the counter with the perfectly made coffee in his hands. As he took a sip, he realized she'd made it exactly the way he liked it. She really had been paying attention all along. Now he just had to decide if he was ready to become part of something much bigger than himself, all because he'd offered to show a stranger around Seattle's coffee shops. As sunset approached, Tom found himself walking with Blue through Pike Place Market, where their adventure had begun just yesterday. The market was closed now, empty except for the 2 of them, a few government agents trying to be invisible, and Blue's advisors floating at a respectful distance. You still haven't told me what being married to an alien princess actually means, Tom said, stopping at the now quiet fish market. Would I have to leave Earth? Learn some complicated royal protocols? Give up making coffee? Blue touched one of the empty fish stands, leaving a trail of starlight on the wood. That depends on what we choose to make of it. Traditionally, my spouse would become a royal consort, living in the crystal towers of our capital world. That sounds fancy, Tom said, trying to imagine himself living in crystal towers. And completely not me. I know, Blue said softly. She turned to face him, her robes swirling with galaxies. That's exactly why I need someone like you. Someone real. She waved her hand, and suddenly they were surrounded by holographic images, scenes from her world. Tom saw massive cities made of crystal and light, beings in formal robes moving in perfect coordination. Everything beautiful but somehow cold. My people live for thousands of your years, Blue explained. Over time, we became focused on perfection, on protocol, on doing everything the right way. We forgot how to be spontaneous, how to truly feel. She gestured at a scene showing what looked like a formal dinner, where nobody spoke or smiled. Even our children are taught to be perfect little nobles before they learn to play. That sounds lonely, Tom said. It is. Blue closed her hands, and the images vanished. Do you know what amazed me most about Earth? Children laughing. Friends hugging for no reason. Strangers helping each other just because they can. Simple things that my world has forgotten. She pulled something from her robes. It was a paper coffee cup from Corner Cup, the one from her first visit. This cup represents more genuine interaction than I've had in a century of formal royal meetings. Now you're exaggerating, Tom smiled. I'm not. Blue's eyes were serious. You asked me what being married to me would mean. It would mean helping me bring life back to my people, not through grand political schemes, but through small things, teaching them how to enjoy a moment, how to make real connections, how to find joy in imperfection. Tom thought about that. By making coffee. By being yourself. Blue stepped closer. I don't need another perfect noble. I need someone who knows that sometimes the best conversations happen over cheap coffee and paper cups. Someone who treats a princess and a stranger the same way. But what about Earth? Tom asked. I can't just abandon my home. Who said anything about abandoning? Blue smiled. Earth would be part of our marriage too. We could split our time between worlds. Teach both sides what they can learn from each other. Earth's humanity, our technology. Your spontaneity, our knowledge. She created another hologram, this time showing Earth and her world connected by bridges of light. Two worlds, different but equal, just like us. Tom watched the hologram spin slowly. You've really thought this through, haven't you? For 3 years, Blue admitted, though I didn't know it would be you specifically until I saw how you treated every customer like they mattered. How you love your work without being proud. How you offered friendship without expecting anything in return. She let the hologram fade. I'm not asking you to stop being who you are. I'm asking you to help me remember who I used to be, before all the protocols and perfect manners, to help my people remember too. The sun was getting lower, painting the empty market in orange and gold. Blue's advisors were looking anxious, and Agent Jones was checking his watch. Time's almost up, Tom said. That's when I have to decide, right? Blue shook her head. Protocol says sunset, but she smiled mischievously. Maybe it's time to break some rules. Take all the time you need. After all, isn't breaking the rules how this whole thing started? For the first time since this crazy adventure began, Tom laughed out loud, and to everyone's shock, especially the advisors, Blue joined in. The morning sun was just rising over Seattle when Tom walked into Corner Cup, but this time he wasn't wearing his barista uniform. Instead, he wore a simple black suit with a subtle pattern that looked like flowing stars, a gift from Blue that somehow managed to look both human and alien at the same time. The coffee shop had been transformed overnight. Crystal decorations floated in the air, mixing with regular coffee shop items in a strange but beautiful way. Earth diplomats in formal wear stood on one side, while Blue's people in their flowing robes stood on the other. In the middle, Blue waited, her starlight robes somehow more subdued today, matching the casual elegance of the setting. Are you sure about this? Agent Jones whispered to Tom. The whole world is watching. It was true. Outside, news crews from every country pointed their cameras at the coffee shop. The first public meeting between Earth and the stellar concordat was about to happen in a small Seattle coffee shop, and a barista was at the center of it all. "Actually, I am sure," Tom said, walking behind the counter one last time. But first, he started making coffee, much to everyone's confusion. His hands moved with practiced ease as he prepared 2 drinks. The alien diplomats watched in fascination as he worked, their formal expressions softening as the smell of fresh coffee filled the air. "Before we start," Tom announced, carrying the drinks to where Blue stood, "I think we should begin this the right way." He handed her a caramel macchiato, keeping a simple latte for himself. "The way we started." Blue's eyes sparkled as she took the cup. "Breaking protocol already." "Well, you did say that's why you chose me," Tom smiled. Then, to the shock of both human and alien diplomats, he raised his paper coffee cup in a toast. "To new beginnings." Blue clinked her cup against his, causing several of her advisors to gasp at such informality. "To new beginnings," she agreed. Then Tom turned to address both groups of diplomats. "I've thought a lot about this whole situation, about protocols and traditions, about Earth and the Concordat, about coffee shops and crystal towers, and I've made my decision." He took a sip of his coffee, making everyone wait, a move he'd learned from Blue. "I accept the proposal, but with some conditions." The alien diplomats started to protest, but Blue raised her hand, silencing them. "Go on," she said. "First, we do this gradually. No rushing off to crystal towers or instant marriages. We date like normal people. Well, as normal as an alien princess and a barista can be." Some of the Earth diplomats chuckled at that. "Second, we establish cultural exchange programs, not just fancy technology, but real connections. Earth students visiting the Concordat, your people coming here, learning from each other. Third," he looked at Blue, "we keep making coffee, together, in both worlds, because sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest things, like sharing a drink with a stranger." Blue stepped forward, her robes shifting like starlight. "The council may not like these unconventional terms." "Then they should remember why you chose Earth in the first place," Tom said. "Because we're unconventional. Because we make mistakes and learn from them. Because we find beauty in simple things." He gestured around at the coffee shop. "Look at this place. It's not perfect. The tables don't match, the floor is a little scratched, and sometimes the espresso machine makes weird noises. But people come here every day to talk, to laugh, to share moments of their lives. That's what your people are missing, right?" Blue turned to her counsel. "He speaks truth. We sought Earth's humanity. Now we must be willing to embrace it, imperfections and all." Then, in a move that made headlines across both worlds, Princess Azure of the Stellar Concordat took off her crown of energy and set it on the counter next to her coffee cup. "Perhaps it's time for both our worlds to learn that formal isn't always better." Tom reached across the counter and took her hand. Above them, the floating crystals sparkled in the morning sun, casting rainbow patterns across the coffee shop's worn floor. Outside, humans and aliens alike watched as 2 worlds came together, not with grand ceremonies or formal treaties, but with a simple cup of coffee and a promise to learn from each other. Sometimes the greatest diplomacy happens in the smallest moments, and sometimes a casual invitation can change the universe.